So hello and welcome back to the Rogue Trader podcast with me, Nick Leeson. Today I'm joined by Jason Sen. Last week we talked about gold and Bitcoin. So I think we're going to expand a little bit or come back to gold later on in this particular part of the program. So hopefully there'll be some insight there. But I thought, Jason, we'd just talk a little bit about pits in general, because I think people are fascinated by them. And I was on the phone with a Belgian journalist this morning, and he was asking me to explain what goes on in the pits. And you know, we've all been in the pits when there's been a significant event going on, and it is bedlam, right? And you know, we often say that a bit of blood gets spilled in the markets, but and that's figurative. But I'm sure that we both remember occasions where actually a bit of blood has been spilt because tempers and tensions start to boil over. So when I was giving him this description this morning, he said that sounds like a mosh pit at a concert, right? So I looked up a mosh pit, and it's described as a designated area, typically in front of a stage or at a rock or metal concert, which I've never been to. You may have been. Where attendees engage in energetic, often chaotic dancing. Well, there's no dancing on a trading floor that involves.
But there's a lot of hand waving. It looks like dancing.
Yeah, that's true. Like a rave. That involves pushing and shoving, right? So there's definitely plenty of pushing and shoving. So that's the definition. So I think if you take out the dancing, although I take your point about the hands flying around everywhere, if you put everybody in a jacket and you're all trying to buy and sell something, then maybe it looks like a mosh pit. So,
it would. It sure would.
And like I remember those times when you go back to some of the big events, the financial collapses, the markets falling, and I'm sure one or two of the people that were involved in some of these stories, but a market where the markets have collapsed everywhere. And nobody knows what the bid is, and somebody's trying to look for the first bid in the pit early in the morning, and there isn't one there, and somebody's offering it a little bit lower. And there's stories of brokers coming in and pulling people out because effectively you're bankrupt. You've got no money left if that's where the market's going to open.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And I'm sure
good point. I've heard stories. Sorry to interrupt you, but I heard stories about traders keeping cards in their pocket because they knew they were bankrupt. And if they stick the card in the pocket long enough, they might just be liquid again if the market turned around. You probably have the same story.
Exactly, and some people, that made them, because they're buying the market effectively at the low because nobody else wants to go there, and people are just offering it lower and lower and lower. Somebody eventually comes in with a bid, the market opens, and the Nikkei 225 is the one that I'm thinking of, and it bounces straight back. And I'm sure that there were episodes in the in New York and Chicago at the same sort of time as well. I think the other one that fascinates people, and we didn't see too much of this in Singapore, but is fines, right? The exchange floors have fines for this, that, and whatever. And I don't really have any funny stories from that, but I know that you do. Have you got a couple of stories around fines that were occurring? And these, I think it goes back to that sort of mosh pit type of environment as well, where everybody's jumping around and tensions are getting a little bit fraught. But let's hear a couple of those.
Well, there's a lot of money at stake, so emotions are always running high, especially, when the markets are moving around, when it's volatile. So they had to have very strict rules, and the only way to punish you is with either a ban, temporary ban, or a fine. So, the fines would be flying around sometimes. I remember a mutual friend of ours who I won't name, but aggressive trader, very dominant in the pit. And of course, there's a lot of swearing going on. It's every second or third word that you would speak is a swear word, wasn't it? Because you're in that aggressive atmosphere. Yeah. And I remember he called someone a word beginning with C, and the pit official went, "Wait, none of that. I'll fine you £1,000 if you use that language again." He went, "Yeah, we'll make it 3,000 because he's a C word and he's a C word and he's a C word." So, and I think he did pay the 3,000 in the end as well.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did, and I'm sure he enjoyed paying the
He
3,000
probably did, and then enjoyed telling the story a few times as well.
100%. I think I've heard it a few times as well. So I think what we should do is we should start a motion to bring back the trading pits. So we'll start here. The only thing I worry about is in the current woke environment, you just wouldn't survive, would you? You know, the language.
No, I'm too old for it as well. I haven't got the energy to stand up for 9 hours a day.
No. All right. Well, look, can we take a look at gold? You know, one of the things that, and I know my background is a bit dubious, but I always remember when I used to sit on the trading desks years ago, and you know, you'd have somebody who was training you, and I use that word very, very loosely, and they'd talk about key levels in markets, and you know, there'd always be, you know, strike prices, and there'd be other key levels, you know, that the market was about to break through, and the advice would always be that it won't go through straight away. It's going to take 2 or 3 attempts, you know, maybe 4 at the outset. But I was looking at gold this week, and I know we spoke about it last week, and we spoke about gold 3,000. Was it going to get there? Yeah, it got there, and it was like a knife through butter. You know, I think when we spoke earlier, you said it didn't touch the sides. It didn't. It's traded up to 3,050 overnight. And, you know, is there any resistance? Is there going to be any resistance? How can you try and predict where it is? I mean, you know, a key level like 3,000, I just can't believe. And I can go back to 2,500. I can go back to 2,000. It breezes through them all at the moment. It just seems to be very different to years ago with that speed.
Yeah, it's a good one to talk about actually, because there is a longer term trend line, one that goes back a few months, and it stalled yesterday. So you were talking about a resistance level. It was around 30.40. I actually sold it a couple of times around there. Right. Managed to take 10 points out of it on 2 occasions, and then I think I tried it a third time, and it just sailed through it. You know, it couldn't hold it for more than probably 3 hours. I'll put it up on the screen, shall I?
Yeah.
So now that we are through there, I think that there's just no stopping it. I'm going to sort of split my screen in half now, so I can just show you the daily chart on the one side. There we go. Where is it? So there you go. Yeah, the trend line is pretty clear. Now, I think, if I remember, it goes back to almost a year. Yeah, April 24, that trend line. There's the next peak around October 24. So we're bang on it right now. If I zoom in, you can see we closed above it, although we have dipped back below it now today. I haven't looked at that in the last couple of hours. So it is an important trend line. Maybe it is having some effect now. We made a new all-time high this morning at 30.57. Yesterday's all-time high was 30.52, but we're now down at 30.31. Now, yesterday's low was 30.22. If we happen to close today below 30.22, I would be quite concerned just in the short term. I'd be concerned that trend line is actually holding, is triggering some profit taking, because that would be a bearish engulfing candle. And I do pay attention to those. I'm not saying I'd be like jumping into an aggressive short position, but I would be concerned that we would have a slightly, a bit of a correction to the downside.
So, but the key part is if it breaks back below 30.22, that's what you're.
For me, it would have to close below 30.22 tonight. Otherwise, I'm not going to be too worried about it.
Okay, all right. And in terms of anything else that you're seeing there on that gold market, that's just the key part at the moment. That particular level, a break above or a move back above 30.50. Where's that going to take us?
I've got 30.58 to 30.60, and I've got 30.70 to 30.72 as my next targets. Yesterday's target I had, I think it was 30.52 to 30.54. So hit that bang on and overran it a little bit. Well, as you can see this morning, the new all-time high, 30.57.
All right. Look, Jason, thank you very much for doing that today. I've been told to ask everybody who views this to like and subscribe to the Rogue Trader podcast. Jason and I will obviously be on here on a regular basis. If you have questions or comments for Jason and I, please post those as well, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Jason, for that. We'll look for that 30.22 level today and see where we go. Take care.